this is not, it's not healthy. I was like, it's not good. It's not productive. So I kind of got into that newer habit and I'm loving it. But so if you don't know what your vision is for it, it's probably going to be a disaster. That this isn't exactly what I was looking for. Here, maybe we could try A, B, and C, and then we can get it that way. Because that's what producers used to do. Like, oh, this is cool, but I wasn't really fitting into a genre. Like, it was a little tough in that sense. You know, starting to make better music. So that was when I had the remix on Max Chapman's label and Resonance. And like, I'll never forget it. She was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I was like, what? She's like, I've never heard you play like that before. Like, and I've heard like tons of your sets. I was like, yo, I was like, I just want to like lift people up, like through music, through whatever it is that I do in any capacity. Like, I just want to raise like the vibration.
Okay, so welcome to another Rave Room Podcast. And today I've got Salvione. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much. Perfect.
Yeah, so, thank you for having me.
Oh, mate, I appreciate you coming on. I know, obviously, we've been back and forth. We've both been unwell, under the weather, but we're back fighting fit now, and I'm glad we're doing this. So yeah, let's start with yourself then. Obviously, let's go right back to where your music journey began, like, you know, your influences, like, you know, with the age and stuff like that. Like, where did it all, like, start to begin?
You know, like musically, you know, I was always surrounded by music, like in my house. You know, I remember, it's like kind of cliche, but like my earliest remembering of like what I guess you would say is like DJing is like I'd be a kid and my mom, my uncle would be listening to music like in her bedroom, and I'd be like changing CDs, and I remember I'd be like, oh, like this will be sick if I put it on. And I'd get like all excited, like a little kid, be like, yeah, like they don't know what's coming kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's kind of the same feeling I get when like I know I got like a banger ready to go, and I'm like, all right, like let's do it. So that was kind of the start of it. You know, I was just always surrounded by, it was always like classic rock, funk, soul, you know, pop music of like the 90s. And it just kind of grew from there. But I really, you know, I was into sports. Like I didn't really do the music thing as a kid. Like I don't have like, you know, it wasn't like taking piano lessons or anything like that. And, you know, I started going out around 16, 17 and like in the New York scene and stuff. Mostly like New York DJs, you know, like Jonathan Peters, Danny Tenaglia, stuff like that. And eventually, like I was playing college football, American football, that is. And once I stopped playing, I kind of was trying to find somewhere to channel that energy of like, oh, every day I go to the gym and I do this and I do that. And I'm like working towards this goal. And I kind of got into the DJing thing. And then at that point in time, everybody that, you know, had a computer could be a DJ. Mm-hmm. So like that art kind of disappeared. So you had to produce your own music. So I dove into production and like I fell in love with it. And music kind of became that thing. And like, I love it because there's always some next level. So like when I stopped playing football, like I would do things, but like it was more of like a finite goal. Like I'd be like, oh, I'm going to run this like 5K. And like I'd run the 5K, I'd be like, all right, now what? And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do this bodybuilding competition. And then like I do, I was like, all right, now what? But like music, it's like, you know, even if you're at level 10, like there's always level 100. Like even if you're Richie Houghton, like there's still some way that you can improve, something to learn, something. And that's what I love. It's just like a constant growth and something every day, you know?
Yeah, it's endless, isn't it, really? Like even with the subgenres and just like in the UK, we have so many subgenres of like just garage and drum and bass. You got jungle, liquid, and then it goes into it's insane. And so like, tell me a bit about like the college football days then, because and the bodybuilding stuff, because that kind of like determination for that sport, you would kind of put that into your music, right, and stuff like that. So it's kind absolutely. Of a good lesson. So how was that college football days of like, you know, getting that mentality to like put that into the future sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. You know, like I grew up playing football since I was 5, and you know, like the discipline and just that work ethic of like, you know, doing it and be like, this is what I'm going to do and putting my mind to it. It's exactly what I put into my music. You know, when I was working full time, I used to wake up 5 a.m, do my meditation and stuff, hop in the studio for 3 hours, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, repeat for years up until 2019. And, you know, like it was just because I knew that that's what I had to do to get where I wanted to go. And so I just did it. And I don't know, it's just that mentality that comes from, you know, those years and kind of the discipline and determination.
That's sick, mate. Yeah, because again, like that, I've read into stuff like, so I've been looking at meditation and stuff because I'm a big sports guy myself. I play, as well, I can, I play ice hockey. I've played ice hockey quite semi-professionally.
Love hockey, favorite sport.
And rugby as well, and soccer and stuff, right?
You're not a Canucks fan, are you?
I'm not, and I kind of plasticky kind of Canucks fan, but they've been doing pretty good lately, and I'm like, well,
they have been. I was at the game when they waxed the Rangers, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, the Rangers just got, didn't they just fire their manager and just got a new one, right?
Yeah. They've been doing really well to start the season, but, you know, they're slowing down now, which is good because I don't want them to, like, you know, be on that high and then crash late in the season. I'd rather have them crash now and, like, figure it out and be good late.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid playing NHL 2000 on PS1.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was always using the Rangers, man. I was like, yeah, it's sick. Because they got this Madison Square Gardens. It's amazing, right?
Yeah. You haven't been, have you?
I've never been, no, but I'd love to go and see a game there. Like, 100%.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. So going back to your inspirations then of like soul, funk, rock and things like that, what kind of rock and soul like was you into and stuff? And
you know, just the classic stuff, you know, James Brown, things like that. Like the classic rock stuff was like, you know, big, like with like Billy Joel. You know, I grew up on like Springsteen. I'm actually like a huge Springsteen fan. I've seen him like 10, 11 times now.
Sick.
Don't let that get out too much to ruin my street cred. But yeah, like I love it. Like it's, I don't know, just like the lyricalness of it, the energy, like tailgating, the vibe. It's a good time. But yeah, like all that stuff. You know, Aretha, Nina Simone, you know, all the kind of classic music, and I feel I really do pull that into my music these days, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that if that sort of vibe, you know, does creep into your sort of productions now. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like, you know, I hear a sample or I hear something, I'm like, ooh, like that'll be sick. Like I just kind of get drawn to those like voices or like grooves and stuff. It's just I need a little soul in there somehow.
Yeah, man, that's what house music's all about as well. And like you said, it can go from like 100 and above, right, with different genres. I'm a big fan of like drum and bass, obviously coming from like sort of London and incorporating them sort of sounds into like techno and house is still like it's the same as what you're doing, right? Which is really good to highlight, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, you know, I haven't really gotten to drum and bass, been to a couple of raves with drum and bass, but I haven't until like I started doing the academy stuff and like talking to people about like what music they actually make. Like I didn't realize how popular drum and bass was because there's not like a scene for that in New York. So I was like very naive to like how much of like a big deal it really is.
Yeah. And that's what I'm going to sort of go to now. So when you said about 16, 17, when you was getting into the music, how was the clubbing scene for you breaking into finding out music and, you know, raves and clubs in New York? What's the scene like when you went?
So luckily, I kind of caught the tail end of New York being like New York. You know, it's always changing and evolving, but you know, like Pacha had just opened, and then you had like Spirit, Roxy, Crowbar. Like it was all those still like big clubs, and like, you know, tons of parties going on. You know, I kind of got into Jonathan Peters first because it was easy to get into his parties at like with a fake ID and all that stuff.
Classic.
So he was always kind of like the gateway for a lot of people in New York. Like if you talk to people from New York about how they first got into it, a lot of it'll be like Jonathan Peters, especially around that time. But yeah, and then it just kind of, as things closed down and Pacha was kind of the only place to go to, you know, I would just be there. So whoever they had, you know, it'd be like Danny Tenaglia, Victor Calderon, Jonathan Peters, like Oscar G. And then eventually, you know, like the European artists started coming over here, and like Black Market and Resolute and things like that started bringing in more of that international talent. And you started to get a taste of like what was really out there versus just that like New York progressive kind of sound.
Yeah. And how was that first like experience of like going and fuck? I mean,
yeah, like I remember like hearing Loco Dice for the first time. I was like, this is sick. But yeah, it was awesome. And, you know, a lot of parties started popping up and different promoters because there was a stretch of time when things closed down that you legitimately either went to Pacha or you went to Cielo, which was also ran by the guys from Pacha. So there was like kind of had a monopoly on the scene a bit.
Yeah.
But you had parties then start popping up doing warehouse things, more underground stuff, cool locations, which was really cool and really good for the scene, bringing artists that people didn't really know, but you kind of trusted the promoter, and you'd hear like really good music every night.
How was like underground scene though? Like what sort of cool things did they do, if you know what I mean? Like for the underground, like
Yeah.
what sort of venues were they finding?
So there was one party where it was a black market party, and you showed up at this deli, and like you went in the deli and you had to say like the code word or whatever it was, and they gave you a ticket. That ticket got you on a van with these like blacked out windows, and the van takes you to this like location where it was basically like this like old abandoned like tugboat, and like the party was like on the tugboat. Yeah, like it's crazy. Like they were doing things like that. There was one in like an old like Western beef like supermarket, like just like cool random things that you're like, yo, this is kind of cool that like we're having a party here.
That's cool because that's like reminds me of like when I was younger. We used to, I don't know how old you are. I'm 34 now, and we used to have iPhone one or the Nokia phones, right? The Nokia phones.
Yeah. Because I'm 35, so I know exactly what you're talking about, playing Snake and all that stuff.
Yeah. And we got the phone, and we ring a number, and then you'd be driving around all the country roads trying to find this rave, and then you're like, turn the engine off, and then there's like five of you in this little car, like all squashed up. And it's like you're listening for the music. You're like, oh, it's down there. And you're like driving around all these country roads trying to find this rave. And then you find it. You're like, and then they're like, oh, it's a field, like all the way. There's like a mile drive into the field. So to go through this field, muddy, getting stuck, we're all pushing the car kind of thing. And then we found it.
You were like,
Oh, yeah, man. I miss those days. They're quality. They were good.
Yeah. It really was like I feel like those days will never come back. Like there's just between cell phones and just laws and stuff like that. Like it was good to kind of enjoy that when it was around.
Yeah. Showing our ages now, aren't we? Fuck.
I know. I was gonna say you sound like a bunch of old men.
Yeah. So how does so obviously going to them raves and that then. So when did you sort of think like, right, I'm in the raves and I really want to break into this DJ scene? Like how did you like sort of who did you talk to, or who did you sort of try and introduce yourself to get into that scene?
Yeah, so like I was like, oh, I was just a party goer for like a long time, and probably around like 18, 19, like I remember I got this because like my mom wouldn't buy me DJ equipment. Like I was like, oh, like my friend, like when I first started going out, I was like, Mom, like I get DJ equipment. She's like, get out of here. Like you don't got time for that. Like it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I turned like 19, 20, probably for like Christmas, I got a Vestix like controller. Like, and I was like, all right, got tractor. Like I was doing the thing, just chilling, like wasn't doing anything like, trying to like gig or anything. I was just having fun. I had no idea like really what I was doing in terms of like building a set or anything, and just playing like all the songs I liked. But it was a good time. And then I went, so probably on like 19, 20, I started like understanding how to DJ, getting into that whole bit. And how old was I? I was probably like 22. And I connected with an old friend from high school who was also trying to do the DJ thing. And actually, my first gig was at Sullivan Room in the city. And I only got it because my friend Vin had the gig, and he was like, oh man, I'll talk to the promoter and I'll see if like we could split my spot. So like he played an hour and I played an hour. And that was actually how I had like my first 2 or 3 gigs. And I would always tell him like, yo, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, it's fine. He's like, when you make it big, just promise me you'll let me open for you. He's like, because you're like a better DJ than I am. And I was like, all right, man, like fine, like that's cool. But that's actually how I got into like that part of the scene. But just kind of growing up in the scene, like I knew a lot of people. So eventually those connections started to kind of come through in the clutch. And also just, when you're going out that long, there's people who you used to just go out with who are just, your friends or normal people that everyone's like, oh, like, the person that's like this thing. I'm like, yeah, because that's just so-and-so to me. Like, it's not like a big deal. It's like they're kind of in positions now where it is a good thing. So
that's so cool. I love hearing stories like that because everyone's like journey's different, right? Of how you're trying to get a set, and it's different from now, right? Like a lot of people do it over text, but like when we were younger, it would be, oh, can I? And I think we're missing that now. Still, a lot of people send messages as just, oh, can I get a DJ set? But I sometimes think like the old way of doing it and chatting to people and just being like, oh, can I have a set to a promoter? Is like, I still think is like the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Because you need that FaceTime. Because otherwise, how many messages does a promoter get from random DJs? Like, hey, I'm a DJ. Can you give me a set? Like, so I think getting that FaceTime definitely helps.
Yeah.
Even at like a bigger level, Yeah,
100%. So when you and your buddy split that slot time and then you started, you got that set, how did you grow from there?
So I started producing at that point, and I started making music. Wound up getting a release on Blue Orb. I met somebody at BPM one year, and I was giving out USB sticks of my tracks, so they signed my first release. Actually, put out the whole thing, and DJ wise, I linked up with my friend who was well connected in the scene, so he kind of became like my manager, and like he was helping me get gigs, and we were kind of working it that way. And between my productions getting better and bigger, and just staying connected in the scene and being friendly with people, it just kind of naturally grew in that capacity to a point where like I was playing Elrow, playing like bigger clubs here, and it was just kind of like a natural progression, to be honest.
That's wicked, like, because I look into like what you've done and stuff and all the guests I have, and you've played like Elrow, BPM Festival. I also see you play for Ministry of Sound. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. I played for Tool Room Party just after the lockdown. That was like the first party after lockdown. It was pretty wild.
Was that your first like set in the UK in London?
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
Oh my God, it was amazing. Like I loved it, and like they're honestly like Tool Room's such like a family to me now. Like everybody there, so I felt like I was right at home, and like it was such a vibe. And especially that was my first big gig coming out of lockdown. Like I had played one in New York maybe a couple weeks earlier, but like it was still pretty chill. But then going to Ministry and like playing was like, I was like, all right. I was like, now we're back. I was like, it was a really cool experience.
Did you play in the box?
No. What was it? Maybe it was the Baby Box, I think it was called. Was it the Baby Box?
You got the Baby Box, the gallery, the roof, and then you got the box, I think.
I think it was the Baby Box I played.
That's a sick room.
Yeah, I liked it. Like the system was good. Like it was like full. It was a vibe in there.
Yeah, because the bar's right next to you, and they're like, "Do you want a drink?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wicked place, man. I love it. I was going there since I was like, since I turned 18. And I was fortunate enough to play there quite a few times, but I loved it there. I saw Pete Tong there. I saw Noir, Cole Cox, I think years and years and years ago. I just saw some amazing people that play there. It's iconic, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely one to I would love to play there again. I'm gonna have to work on that. But it is an iconic venue. Like everybody knows it. Like you mentioned it to people like, that aren't into house music. They're like, oh, Ministry of Sound, like that's a big deal, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's a beautiful club. So with your producing then, when you got into it, like what sort of stuff did you sort of delve into with the producing? Like what sort of door and how did you learn it? Because I've read that you've obviously done a lot of courses, and you also have your own course as well, the Elevate Academy. Am I right with that? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
the Elevate Academy.
So how did you break into that producing side and learn the fundamentals and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into production, and I had gotten like a version of Logic and a version of Ableton. And so it's funny. So Jonathan Peters used to DJ on Ableton. So like I would only see it in session view. So I remember I first opened Ableton, and I'm like trying to load these one shots into like where like you would put the clips in Ableton. And I was like, I don't know how to swear. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like I'm like, you hit play, like it's not. I was like, how would you do this? So then I switched to Logic, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. You put this here, you put that there. Like it's a timeline. How hard could it be?
Yeah.
So I started like messing around. So there was this one guy who like, had a couple of tracks out or whatever. So he came by to give me and my friend Vin a little like Ableton lesson. And like, he's like, so he's showing me Ableton. He's like, yeah, so all you got to do is hit tab and it takes you like to this screen. I was like, yo, you could go home. I'm good now. Like, now I understand. So
thanks for the lesson. See you later.
yeah, I'm like, perfect. But so then I wound up going, I was just messing around, but I still didn't really understand everything. And I went to Miami that year for Winter Music Conference, and there was this DJ from New York, Dave Rosario, who's like big in like, early 2000s, like late 2000s, got, releases on like 8-bit and like a couple of big labels.
Nice.
And so he grabbed me and he's like, yo, he's like, what do you do? I was like, what do you mean what do I do? And he's like, like, what do you do for work? And I was like, telling him. And he was like, oh, he's like, like, I really feel like, like you're a good dude. Like, you work hard. Like, I want to kind of like take you under my wing or whatever. So we get back, I buy an iMac. He loads it up with Ableton and all these plugins and everything. And then he never gave me a production lesson ever. So here I am like fending for myself a little bit. And so New York at the time had this spot called Dubspot. And then they also had like one in LA. And they would do like all tutorials online and everything. So
cool.
At the recommendation of another New York guy, Richie Santana, who used to be Mind Control at Peter Bailey, I went to Dubspot and did an Ableton course. So I don't know if you're into like acid at all, but you ever hear of a guy, Abe Duque?
Yeah, so I remember, that name rings a bell for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he used to be like, like quote unquote the king of the 303 because like he was like one of the original guys who was doing the acid thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was actually my Ableton teacher at Dubspot.
Oh, really?
And so yeah.
Sick.
So like, it was sick. Like it was awesome. And so I did the Ableton course, and then like I'm like a lifelong learner. Like I love learning new things and everything. So once I got my teeth into being like, oh, I could like go to this program and learn this thing that's specific to what I want to learn, it was like down the rabbit hole I went. Like, I took mixing and mastering at Dubspot. I took music theory, wound up taking private jazz theory lessons with my teacher that was my theory teacher at Dubspot. And like I just kind of progressed from there. So like, yeah, like anything that I could get my hands on, if I felt like I was like weak in it, I'd find a course for it, take it, do the notes, do whatever homework that was there, and just keep kind of honing my craft, honestly.
That's wicked, man, that you did that, because I think learning like classical music, and like I learned the piano at the age of 5. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how to play much of it as much as I used to, but I know, whatever. But I still think that is a valid sort of fundamental to have, like to learn classic for all kinds of music, even for house. And it's good that you explain that, because I think a lot of people don't want to go near it because of the street cred and all that. But I think learning it is a good thing for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, well, so then that was when I was 25. I started taking the classes at Dubspot. I was actually finishing up my doctorate. And so I was going to school during the week and then going to Dubspot on Saturdays to like learn Ableton. Like I was like doing both at the same time. And so I also then I never had class on Fridays. So at 25, I started taking piano lessons because I was like, oh, this will help me produce. So here I am walking into this lady's house who normally teaches like little kids. Like here I am, like this grown ass man, like coming in like, yeah, I'm here for my piano lesson. So it was funny, but yeah, like honestly, I think that music theory in general is one of like the most important things that you could learn as a music producer. I use the analogy as like, could you make like a dope track like without knowing music theory? Absolutely. But it's kind of like you're gonna do trial and error. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes before you find that, sweet spot. It's like if I told you to drive to this location and you didn't know where that location was, like, but you knew generally you make a lot of lefts and rights, you'll eventually get there, but it's not like an efficient way to get there. Whereas if you know theory, it's like having like your GPS out and it's like, yeah, you go here, you go there. Oh, there's 3 routes that can go that way. You pick one and you go that lane and you're going to get there. You're going to get that idea out of your head. Whereas like a lot of people like, you don't need theory to make a track. Technically you don't, but it'll make it a whole lot easier and a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, and I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad you mentioned that, and it shows the passion you've got for music, because I say it's quite a lot. Like with the thing with social media now, everything's in 15-second clips and it looks like instant success. Okay, right, I'm going to go on Splice. Just drag and drop. Like I got Splice the other day. I'm going to really show my age here. But I got Splice the other day and I never bought it, right? I've been a Reason user since Reason 3 or 4. And okay. I was like, fuck it. One of the guys was like, oh, just try it for thingy. And I was this, I would say, moany old guy that was like, oh, I'm never going to use samples. I'm going to do it all myself with the machines, right? And I still got my machines. And then I just dragged in all this stuff and I made a track of it in 5 minutes. I was like, there's no way that's... And I was baffled by it. Other people might think that's normal and just, oh, we've been like that for ages. But for me, I was just like, fucking serious? It used to take me a month to make a track, you know? Like...
Yeah, I mean, Splice is definitely like a great tool for things like that.
Yeah.
But like the other problem is that everyone's using Splice. So like it's hard to use, you know, like an original thing. And you can hear it. Like you'll hear a track come out. You're like, oh, this is cool. And then like a month later, you hear 4 more tracks come out with like the same sample. And you're like, oh, it's definitely like where it came from. So I don't use Splice, needless to say. But it's not because I think that it's not a useful tool. It just, I've kind of been ingrained in my workflow now that I just don't, yeah.
It's definitely useful, not for sure it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely useful.
Yeah. But I was just like, oh, mate, I didn't realise. I felt like I was cheating in a way, do you know what I mean? I know it may sound stupid, but, you know, if it increases people's workflow, that's great, you know. But for me, I was just like, fucking no way am I just trying this and this and this. Like, it's all made for me, like, you know.
Yeah. And you still have like 100,000 credits left.
Yeah, I've only pulled like 2 samples. I've had it for 2 months, got 300 credits. I'm like, what the hell? I can't even use them.
Yeah, like I get people like, oh, well, I have like 100,000 Splice credits, so like I guess I could get some samples. I'm like, yeah, you probably should. Like that's the thing, you're never really going to use as much as they give you, so it's just load them up.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. And they, like I say, it shows your passion that you learnt that way, because I feel like I said with social media, people trying to go for instant success, and I'm like you. I like the long journey of learning things, and that way you're less likely to sort of trip up and make mistakes, because you're learning what you make it. Like you said, you're making them mistakes, but learning it on the way to really like fine tune your craft, right? So that goes on to my question of like how is your production process from the start to what it is now, like on that journey, you know. I know you did the courses at Ableton and stuff, but like, what was it like making like your first track what does your first track sound like compared to your track now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, so what kind of happened was I used to like, I mean, I still am into a lot of different kinds of house music. So I used to just make a lot of different things at the start. Like I'd kind of just pick something, be like, oh, this is cool, and go, and like something would take me in one direction and I would just go with it, even though it wasn't the style I was trying to make, or I'd be like, oh, this is cool, but I wasn't really fitting into a genre. Like it was a little tough in that sense. The first EP that came out, I kind of want to redo the title track. Like I want to do like a 2.0, because I'm like, oh, if I was to make that track now, not that it wasn't like good, but like the sample was dope. I was like, this is a great idea. I just didn't have the full skills to like execute it in the way that it deserved, in my opinion. So I'm definitely going to do a 2.0. But what kind of happened along the way was I was going to ADE 2015, I want to say. And so I was making like a bunch of music to hand out on USBs. And I was like, yo, this is it. I was like, this is the best music I can make. I was like, we're going to go. This is going to get signed. This is it. Like, here we go. Like, so load up the USBs. I go to Amsterdam. I have dinner with Ralph Lawson. And like through like my friend, his wife like runs an agency, and Ralph was on the agency. So I had dinner with them, give him the stick, hanging out with Ralph. Him and I are good friends now. And so like 2 weeks later, he comes back to me and he goes, yeah, the tracks are good, but I feel like the production needs to come on a bit more. And I was like, shit. I was like, this is the best I got. Like, I was like, I can't tell you what's me. I was like, this is it. I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to like do this music thing. Like, I was like, I don't know. So after a couple of days of feeling sorry for myself, I like brushed the dust off a little bit.
Yeah, they kicked in the balls.
And yeah. I was like, all right. And so I kind of started objectively listening to my music and the music that was out there that I liked and the labels. I was like, all right, this is what's missing. This is like this way. And, I took a couple of more courses in different things. And I wound up, starting to make better music. So that was when I had the remix on Max Chapman's label and Resonance. And then I had another release. I had another EP that hit, what it hit? It hit top 10 in tech house releases and like top 15 in Beatport like releases.
Nice.
Yeah, I really like that EP actually. Which was a totally different vibe from the other stuff that I was making. Like it was more of that like Kine music like thing. Like you could see, like you could kind of see how I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I'll make this, and like all the early kind of releases are like here, there.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I had that success, I was like, it's not it. I was like, I need to get on that guy's label. Like I need to get on Ralph's label in order to feel like I'm there. So then I wound up, made a track, sent it to Ralph, loved it, put it out on 2020 editions, which was like the sub label for 2020 Vision. So I was like, all right, now we're like in a good place, and started having like more releases. During COVID, did Tool Room Academy Masterclass. And then like had the Tool Room release, like had the Baikonur release come out, like things like that. So now like I'm in this spot where I understand what my sound is versus like chasing this trend or, being like, oh, this is cool. This is what people are doing. This is the vibe. And like trying to make that. Now, like I know what I do, and like I've kind of honed that workflow and that sound. And I'm still always evolving within that realm. But like, all right, like I know I make music for the dance floor. I make like that, like tech house kind of vibe with like that soul funk, like, kind of goodness to it.
Yeah.
And like, that's just what I do. Like, can I go a little deeper? Absolutely. Can I go a little harder? Sure. But there's like, a sonic, like, what would it be like sonic branding, let's call it, where like I'm at the point now where I feel like when you see a track come out from me, you're going to know what to expect. Whereas before it could have been here, there, and everywhere.
For sure. That's good that you know your sound now, and people. That's like one of the most musicians kind of like aim is to have that certain sound and know that, right? And I've listened to your tracks over the past couple of weeks while I've been like bedbound, being ill. Yeah, there was Max Chapman's label one's really good. I loved the Champion Sound one. That was very sort of me, man.
That was the Ralph Lawson one. That was like the one. I was like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool. Now I'm back because I made it to Ralph's label. He accepted me.
I fucking loved that one. That was a real groovy kind of. That was my vibe for sure.
Oh, awesome! Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And Better Days was good with Tool Room as well. And the Resonance one was Drum with Wings, was it?
Drums with Wings was that was Resonance. Yeah,
that was a good one too. Yeah, I like your sound, man. That's why when you started following my page, I was like, oh, check out your music and stuff. And I was like, this is kind of like the stuff I used to love back in 2012-14 vibe. And it was really tribally and kind of like real deep and groovy. I loved it, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the direction I'm trying to kind of keep going in, it's just the like dancey, tribally, funky, like, like the Better Days kind of vibe. Even like talking about, I actually wrote the lyrics that Talking About track. That was like the first time that I kind of did that. Yeah. And the vocalist, I had done a track with her. She did the vocals on my Tool Room track. And I like wrote these lyrics, and I was just like, oh, she's the one that can like pull this off. So we did that one. But yeah, it's that's kind of my vibe now, I think. Like I'm kind of trying to stick to that lane a bit.
Nice, man. I just want to step back a little bit as well, actually. When you say you went to ADE, like what made you go there, and like how did that like develop for you to go, and what made you want to be like, oh, I'm going to go this year, kind of thing?
So I knew that like, it was a big, big networking conference. Like I'm always into learning. So I was like, ooh, these conferences like seem like a really cool thing. So like I'll go and like check out the panels and stuff. And so the person who was my manager at the time, whose wife like ran the agency that Ralph was on, like we were kind of agreed that would be like a good step, kind of network. And we were always traveling for music, even like if I wasn't playing or anything, like my group of friends it's how we would see the world. It'd be like, oh, we'll go to BPM Festival, and then you see Mexico, you do whatever. Or we went to BPM Portugal the first year, and then we'd be like, yeah, we're here for the festival, and then we'll bounce to some other country and do it that way and kind of like see the world like through music, meet new cool people. So it wasn't anything out of the ordinary for us to kind of travel to different festivals. But yeah, I love ADE. It's my favorite. I've been back like 4 or 5 times now. Like I think we're on 3 years in a row. But yeah, I love it.
Would you recommend that for anyone that wants to get into music to go to?
Absolutely, hands down. I mean, it has everything for everyone. If you want to just network and meet other producers, you can hop in, like go to some of like the networking stuff. If you want to learn how to produce, they got different master classes, different programs. You could be there. I like to say, like, I like to figure out what my goal is for the year and like, what I'm trying to get out of it. Because there is so much stuff that goes on that you could just get swept away and just never really do those things. And so like, like I said, if you want to meet or get into like a certain label, maybe they're doing, a demo drop, or maybe they're doing a panel somewhere, like go sit in on the panel and then go up to people after and kind of, have a conversation with them. Like they're always going to be more open to talk in that setting versus if you try to grab them backstage at some party or hope that like you're going to run into them on the street in Amsterdam or things like that. So I think it's a great thing for anyone that's just starting out versus, or even anybody that's kind of like in the middle of their career and wants to take it up a notch. There's just so many possibilities.
I love you explain that because it kind of falls back to the same as what you did when you first got your DJ gig and networking with promoters. You're kind of using that, and then as you go through, and that's a great story to sort of tell, because like people can do that from a local club and then start working their way and using them, building their confidence to be like, I'm going to go to ADE and speak to some of these big people, if you want to call them big, or or whatever, right? And that's a good kind of thing to explain. And I think a lot of people don't need to hear more of that. Do you know what I mean? Because they think, I'm at ADE and I'm mingling, but not everyone knows that process, right?
Yeah, like it's good to have a plan, and I think you're right. I think that when you can kind of do like a little warm up in a local club and like talk to somebody and understand, because the biggest thing that I learned like early was that anyone, whether they're big, small, whatever, like they're just people. So like you don't have to be like in awe of like some big DJ or like some big label owner, or like you don't have to treat them a certain way or try to act the thing. Like just treat them like a human and just chill and like be cool, and like they'll respect you and they'll want to help you. It's just be genuine. Honestly, that's really the thing, is like just be you.
Yeah,
and it'll be fine.
I totally agree. I did that with I went to, there's a festival we have here in BC in Canada, and it's called Bass Coast, and I messaged Justin Martin. I texted him and said, hey man, do you come on a podcast show? He was like, yeah, I'm just can I do my set? I've just got off the plane, can I come? I was like, yeah, and he done it. And then we've got a new club here called The Vault in Vancouver. Absolutely amazing. The first club in Vancouver that's got 3 rooms.
Oh, nice.
I think a lot of clubs are missing nowadays. And I messaged Hector and I was like, hey man, I know you're in town. I remember watching, we knew kind of like the same people that he's played with. And I said, I come and watched you in 2015 on Nick Fanciulli's event in my local town. He was like, oh yeah, I'll come on. And he was the most nicest, genuine guy. And for me, starting this podcast, I never expected, but like you say, like they're just the most humblest people, but you think because they're this, big, you don't, do you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely, man. Like it's so true. Like I've actually hung out with Hector a few times, and like he's a funny guy.
yeah.
Like I love him. He's hilarious. But like all these guys, like they're just normal people. Like, they're up there, but that doesn't change who they, well, I mean, some people, I guess it does, but
Yeah,
for the average,
normal,
like, yeah, exactly. But, like, it's just normal, man. Like, I engineer for Danny Tenaglia now, and it's like,
wow,
17-year-old me, like, pinches myself when I'm, like, hanging out in his kitchen, and he's, like, cooking, like, chicken cutlets and broccoli rabe, and I'm like, yo, is this really happening right now? Like, this is real life. But like, oh, he's just super chill. Like, you know, like he sends me memes. Like he just sends me funny videos. Or like, what, like he's just a normal guy. Where everyone's like, oh my god, what's that like? I'm like, oh, he's just normal. Like
Yeah,
it's it. Like it's like you just treat people how you would want to be treated, and just be cool. And like you said, shoot people a text, be nice. Like I hit up people on Instagram all the time, like, yo, caught you here. Like thought the set was great, or hey, love your show. Like you know what I mean? Like there's just like just give appreciation to people like when it like you see fit, and like you'd be surprised with how much just being nice to somebody and like asking, like people think that they can't ask the question, what's the worst that happens? Somebody says no. Like, you
yeah,
know, you asked Hector to come on the podcast. He could have either not answered you, or he could have been like, nah, bro, like I'm good. But like
yeah.
that's not what happened. Even if that, you know, he said no, who cares? You'll be fine. Just get somebody else.
Exactly. Like my nan used to say to me, if don't ask, you don't get.
That's true. That
So,
is true.
but even
Cool.
yourself, like, you know, you took the time to come on here and I really appreciate that. You know, it's a big, you know, it's very nice of you to do so. And, I really appreciate it. But one thing I do want to go on actually is when you do your productions and you get a vocalist, I think I want to ask this question because I think it's a lot of producers get like you say, get samples from online and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it navigating to find the vocalists, get them, and then work out all the you know, the okay, well you know, you're on the song, you get you know, this or that. How does that all work, the whole process for that?
So, I mean, I've had a couple of like it. You need the right vocalist, and I don't even mean just like singing wise. Like people have to kind of understand. People have to understand like house music in order to like write for it if they're gonna write the lyrics. Because I've had a couple of people who are like, yeah, I could sing, and they could sing, and then I'd be like, yeah, can you write me like something for this? And they're writing me like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, I just need a hook that's killer, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, we don't need to go write like a Grammy nominated, you know, pop track here.
Yeah.
So that's one important thing. The other thing is, you know, the person, you need to find somebody like the girl that I work with, Cordula, who did Talking About and Move With Me. Like she takes direction very well. And so you have to be confident as a producer in knowing what it needs in terms of the track, and also confident enough that you can go tell somebody else in the right way, of course, like that this isn't exactly what I was looking for. Here, maybe we could try A, B, and C, and then we can get it that way. Because that's what producers used to do. Like now you're the whole thing. You know, you're a one-man band. You're doing the keys, you're doing the drums, you're doing whatever. Back in the day, or in a pop sense, producers just get the most out of that artist. So when you're working with a vocalist, it's the same thing. You just need to find a way to get the most out of that vocalist as a producer. So you can't be a dick about it, but you know, you just have to tell them, be like, all right, like this is cool, but I was looking for something more this way, and give them direction. So if you don't know what your vision is for it, it's probably going to be a disaster. But so finding someone that can sing really well with a good tone and that can deliver, you know, what you're looking for is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people can go on Fiverr. Like Fiverr is a good site where you can grab, you know, a vocalist, and at least you know what you're paying up front. Some people you could pay them up front and they don't want royalties. You know, you can hear samples of theirs that like, you know, hear how they're singing and stuff. So that works out well. In terms of splitting, you know, royalties and everything, look, I'm a 50-50 kind of guy. Like if you're singing on the track, yeah, like I made it, but you're going to push it just as much as me. And plus, no one's really making money off of music like that anyway. So
No, it's
I'll
for
split 50% because
yeah.
50% of zero is still zero. So we're still even. So it's not like a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. I'm kind of fair like that. Some people like to take more, be like, oh, here's 10% or here's a certain thing. But I split it 50-50. I don't see a problem.
No, that's fair, man. I'll do the same, and you know, I think that's really good because again, it's a collective effort, and like you say, you don't make the money anymore, but it's you do it for the passion, right, and the love. If you get money from it, it's a bonus, right? That's the way I look at it anyway. But I asked that question because a lot of people don't know how to navigate that. You know, if they're getting into music, they're like, well, how do I find a vocalist, or what's the stuff behind it? You know, they don't know that sort of
Yeah.
part. You know, and that kind of like sort of puts me onto your Elevate stuff then, because I know this is a course that you do and you teach music production, and obviously you teach this sort of stuff. And so can you tell me how like Elevate sort of evolved, and where'd you get the name from, and how did it all start?
Yeah, so Elevated kind of came about because I was like, all right, I'm gonna start a radio show. And well, first I was gonna do a newsletter. So I was like, all right, I need like a brand. And I was trying to think, like what it could be. And I thought to myself, I was like, all right, well, like what am I about? What is like my core kind of values and things? And I was like, I just want to like lift people up, like through music, through whatever it is that I do in any capacity. Like I just want to raise like the vibration. And I was like, oh, it's like Elevate. So I was like, oh, Elevate's like a cool brand. And then I started kind of thinking of like all the different avenues. So, like in the newsletter, you get Elevate Your Playlist, which is like my Spotify and Apple Music playlist will give you the 5 tracks that get added. Like, but what happened was when I went to syndicate the radio show, Griffin has Elevate Radio. So they're like, yeah, this could be a problem. So they're like, what about Elevated? I was like, cool. So I had Elevated Radio, and then everything else was Elevate. So originally it was like Elevate Your Sound and Elevate Your Sound Academy. And more recently, I'm rebranding everything to Elevated. So we're coming out with whole new branding. It's actually being redone right now. I'm actually really excited to see how that comes out because the concept is like really cool, like New York subway based kind of branding where because like there's so many avenues for you to travel through the Elevated brand. Like there's the radio show, I'm gonna start doing a podcast. So like there's the podcast, there's the academy, there's the playlist. So it's kind of like the different trains and the train lines and everything. So we're kind of leaning into the New York thing. So I'm actually really excited to how that comes out. But yeah, like Elevated is just aimed at raising the overall vibration of the house music community. So whether that is by just putting everything I have into the radio show episodes. So once a week, if somebody's having a bad day and they're like, oh, but you know what? This is the day that like I listen to Elevated Radio and it gives them a good thing, or, whether it's putting into like my productions or taking the time to do the playlist and people are like, oh, these are great tracks and like saving them and putting the playlist on. Like I just try to bring the vibe up. I even do one of my side projects is I make binaural beat meditation music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, with some like healing frequencies and stuff. So is part of like Elevated Souls, I give like one binaural like a month in the newsletter. And so like I'm just trying to like do whatever I can to just bring everybody up with me,
Yeah, that's sick. And is that community that you're trying to build mainly in New York, or is that worldwide?
Worldwide. I mean,
Worldwide,
honestly, I have a lot of people that are, all over the world. Like I had students in London, students, here in the States, a student from Toronto, a couple of people in France. And yeah, like I just want to build it globally. Like if I could do that and bring people together where everyone's just vibing and having a good time and just actually trying to like raise everybody else up because like it's a collective thing, So if I can get a group of people that are all feeding off each other and like we can just make the world a little bit better of a place somehow,
yeah,
I'm with it.
That's sick, mate. Yeah, if you need any help from me, like I'm happy to help you by all means.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I think it's all about, in this sort of scene, I think it's all about give and take, trying to help people here. I've got a certain skill set that can help you, or you've got a certain skill. You know what I mean? It's very much like that. And I think with an academy like that, I think it's, good to share that sort of stuff as well. And with regards to like the podcast, then how is that going to be? Is that going to be a mixed series, interviews? How's that how are you gonna grow that?
So it's going to be interviews. So it's geared towards aspiring DJs and producers. And so think about it almost like a personal development podcast, but geared towards that. So instead of just like, interview style, it's more about getting an artist on and talking about their creative process, or, you say about like social media and everything being so like, oh, it's so quick and it's so easy and everything, like kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit and letting, because, social media is like the highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
So like it's pulling that curtain back where like yo, like people do think that like Jamie Jones shows up in the studio and like shits out a banger like every time that he goes in there and then just like walks out. Like that's not what happens, but that's like what it seems like. You
Yeah,
know
I
what
know.
I mean?
Yeah,
Like that's what
yeah,
it seems like. So I want like, you know, because it's hard when you're starting out and you're like, oh man, like couldn't make anything today and you're hard on yourself. But these guys have the same exact problems as the guy who's been making music for a year or two.
yeah,
So like, why not pull that back, like that curtain back a little bit, and just show it, and where you know you could have these artists on and be like, yeah, like when I get stuck, this is what I do, or this is my creative process. This is what it's like a day in the studio, and just kind of you know pick their brain in that sense. I want to have on people in terms of like branding and PR and managers and you know other industry professionals, and basically ask them the questions that you know an aspiring DJ producer would want to ask them.
yeah.
You know, like if someone's like a manager, you know, like all right, so what do you look for when you're trying to take on a client? When do you think that you know a DJ is ready to have a manager? You know, like things like that where it's more of an educational space, which again, I guess kind of comes full circle with how I kind of operate. But I want to like give that back to people and kind of give something that I wish was around when I was in that position, which is
For
kind of
sure.
where like
Yeah,
the academy came in as well. You know, I kind of built this thing that like when I had the Ralph Lawson scenario, you know, at ADE, like I kind of built the program that I wish existed in one place then instead of like going to all these different schools and doing all that.
yeah. Because that's the same. Like when me and you, like obviously the same age, and we've done similar sort of process. When I was DJing, when I was about 20, there was nothing. The Facebook just sort of come out, hosting events. Like I played a lot of events back then. You didn't have everything that you have now, and it's like I kind of miss that wave of jumping on when it did go like that, you know.
Yeah.
But again, I'm appreciative of what I've done over the years. But like you say, the fact that that wasn't available back when you're providing that now is a really good thing. Like for me, I like that's why I do the podcast as well, is because I just like a chin wag anyway and hearing people's stories. But I had one guy on called Cam, and he owns a cocktail brand. But I also wanted to ask him, like, he also curates parties, and he has certain DJs that he picks that goes with certain artwork,
Oh,
and he
that's sick.
creates an experience. And he done a drone party, first ever one in Vancouver, I think it was. I was like, how the fuck does that? You pick the music, then pick the art, and then mix that together. He done one in an aquarium, a rave in an aquarium with the artwork.
That's sick.
And I'm
That's sick.
like, I wish more people could hear that story, because you don't hear that, right? Like, you know, like you said, the highlight reel on social media is there's like this successful thing, but you don't hear the stories from like in the UK we call them glass collectors, but busboys, right? The glass collectors. You don't hear the sound engineers that are like in ministry. You got them in the back of the box, and they're going as they're playing, right? And you don't hear them stories. You just see this highlight of a DJ smashing it behind the decks, and like you say, Jamie Jones apparently just walks in the studio, what people think he does, and then just walks back out, and he's made a top 10 hit, you know. And that kind of goes back to, like you said, with the social media stuff. Like with what you said earlier, we're not just artists anymore and producers. We're also a promoter, a graphics designer. We're also a brand marketer and media marketing and that whole project. So does Elevate show that as well? Is that what you were saying? They kind of navigate of how to do that as well, yeah?
Yeah, so that's why I want to bring on. So as part of the academy, I have monthly master classes. So I do bring on people like that to kind of talk about that in terms of like, you know, the artists and students that I have. But I want to either turn those master classes into podcast episodes or have specific podcast episodes where people do come on and talk about those things. Like, okay, so if I'm, you know, a DJ and I got a couple gigs here and there, and, you know, like I got 200 followers, like what can I do to grow my brand, or how often should I be posting, or what can I do, you know, and just picking the brain and getting to be able to help those people, because it's hard when you're like at that point and you think you got to do all of these things, you know, because it's like, oh well, I have to do this and I have to do that, and so and so's doing this, and you're looking at somebody else's, you know, some, you know, Martin Ikin's like social media or something. It's like some of these people have teams, like, you know, like there's somebody that is solely doing that, there's someone who's just doing the content. Like, you're not going to be able to do that. And if you are, you're never going to be able to hone your craft enough to get to that point anyway. So I just want to, educate people on things that they can be doing to help them advance, kind of any way I can. And if they pick up one thing from an episode, then that's a win for me.
That's perfect, yeah. And I love it how you said you're going to bring in like where you do meditation and stuff. I think, and this is what I'm trying to dive deeper into as well. Is everyone thinks, like you say, we go on the computer, we go and make music, but no one knows like what the benefits are of like if you did meditate for 30 minutes, that's going to open up your mind to more creative ideas and. Or if you went for a run or a walk, like now you're seeing a lot of DJs and producers, they're going sober and they're hitting the gym every day. They're getting jacked. And like you said with your football stuff, right? That sort of drive mentality is going to help you with what you do in the future. And I think what you're doing that with what you're saying in your podcast about the meditating and how to, better the like people's projects is a good thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge thing. Like mindset in my master class, because I got 2 programs. And in my master class, that's the first thing that I teach is a mindset class, because that's the foundation of everything. Like if you don't have the mindset right, then everything else that you do on top of that, it's going to eventually crumble. Like even if you can, do it once, you're not going to be able to do it again. Or, like there was times when like, like that Ralph Lawson story where I was like, yeah, I'm going to make it. Like if I would have actually like made like a dope track and like had like a huge #1 hit and like got popular, and like I would have just nosedived right into the ground because I was not ready for it emotionally, mentally, musically. Like I just didn't have the skill to replicate a track. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was mindset is such a huge thing. And I really do think that when I got into like the meditation practice was, it really did kind of help me get into the right mindset. And I do try to encourage my students to, even if it's just like closing your eyes and taking a couple of breaths before you start a session, just to clear your mind of all the stuff that happened before, at what you're supposed to do after, and just so it kind of sucks you back in to be like, all right, you're present, you're making music, your head's clear. But yeah, like that's why I do the Mindset Monday stuff, because mindset is a really important thing. And so I just try to tackle different problems that, DJs, producers, even regular like people like have, did one on like the comparison trap. Everybody kind of deals with that, especially with social media, but yeah, mindset's huge.
It's like when I had Hector on, he said to me about, he read a book called the 5 a.m. Club.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me about it, and I was like, "Fuck, I'm buying it." So after our interview, I went straight on Amazon and bought it. And he's like, "This book made me the most creative. It's what gave him the idea for Vatos Locos, his brand, to bring up that, right?" And I was like, "Oh, the 5 a.m. Club. I get up at 5 a.m. for work, well, a little bit later than that for work." But he's like, "I get up at 5, sometimes work out or do this, do that." I was like, "Man, I need to do that." Right, I do. And I started reading the book. Started going to the gym, and it does make your mindset better. So you're right in what you say. Yeah, it does make you feel more, not just creative, but more like focused.
Yeah,
not so
absolutely. Yeah. Like I mean, I still wake up at 5. I wake up, do my breath work, I meditate, I journal, take care of the dog and stuff, and then like I'll go on a run. And honestly, I get my best ideas when I'm out on a run. Like business stuff, creative stuff, like, and I'll just throw on like a set and I'm just running, and then like the ideas just start coming to me because my head's clear. And I keep my phone on sleep mode until about 9 a.m. And that's like a new thing I've been doing in the past like 8 months or so. But just so I don't have any notifications when I go to like apps on my phone, like my meditation or whatever, I just swipe down, type it in, and then go right to that app. So I never see if I have a text. I don't see the emails. And it's just when I start my day, then I start my day. Like I don't have all that clutter of like, because there was a stretch of time, like I'd keep the phone by the bed, I'd wake up, I'd roll over. And especially like, you're emailing people in Europe, like they're already up. So I roll over like, did that person answer my email? Like, and I'm still laying in bed. And I was like, it's not healthy. I was like, it's not good. It's not productive. So I kind of got into that newer habit and I'm loving it. But
no, it's good you explain that. These new habits and these things that you explain are great, even for me, because when I was under the weather, I kind of went back to that, looking at the phone at like 11 at night, I'm just staring at it because I felt like death, right? So
yeah, of course.
And then I'm like, I know I need to get out of this rut, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you explained that. And I also, what I remember was, I'm glad that you explained about like the USB thing, because loads of people just throw like emails and say this, and I still like the fact that you do that, or you did do the USB idea, because I think that's still, like you said, meeting people face value, but also giving people hard copies of music.
Yeah,
It's still a wicked
it's
thing.
big. But my big recommendation, I did a little tutorial like heading into ADE this year. It's good to have the sticks, right? Like it's a little something, but a lot of these guys, like you're giving it to them, they're out, they're whatever. People lose it. People got to remember to listen to it. So I always say you can give the stick, but the best thing that you could do is get someone's contact info, because that allows you to do the best thing you can always do, especially in a scenario like ADE where you could meet 100 people in a day. And if you're a big enough artist, God knows how many people in passing, someone's like, oh, hey, like, you know, you're not going to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could shoot somebody a follow-up email the next day, be like, hey, Hector, it was really cool meeting you, like, you know, and reference something from the conversation that you had. So they say they remember it, and then like, just leave it there. Like, you don't got to ask for anything. You don't got to whatever. So it just helps you stick out to them, helps you nurture that relationship a little bit. And then by having their email, instead of just giving them a stick, hoping they listen to it, then they got to like hit you back. Like, you know, you have your contact info on the stick. Now it's this endless flow. You can be like, hey, I got these new tracks. Like, here's like my demos or whatever. Like, you can continue to like rinse that relationship, or like, you know, like not in like a bad way, rinse it, but you can have more than one shot at getting that opportunity. Whereas people are just like, yo, here's the stick, and the person takes it, and then you never hear from them again, and you're back in the same exact boat you were before you ever handed them the stick.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're like, oh, hey, can I get your email so I could send you some music? Like they'll give you the email, and then you can, you know, you don't want to be annoying, but you can hit them with tracks for forever until they stop answering you, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they might just get the USB and go, just throw it.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that was worth. I got that off Amazon.
Yeah, like, you know, they're like, oh, where did I put that thing? It was in this pocket, but that was like 10 hours ago, you know, like it's.
Yeah.
But if you make it special for them, I'm in this group, and this guy's in Australia, and he really loves Moxie music, and he got this custom made wooden box with like the Moxie logo branded in it, and like he put a USB in it, and he saw Darius at a show and gave it to Darius, and Darius actually did a story talking about how this person gave him like this stick, and he was like, you know, like, I'm gonna listen to it. He's like, please be good, because like I really want to sign this, like that this person did this whole thing and went through the effort and like whatever. He's like, I really want this to be good because I really want to sign this person. And he did sign the music, actually.
That's sick.
So like if you do it in the right way, like it definitely goes like a long way with people versus like just giving them a random USB, you know, making it special like that. Like it makes you stick out.
Yeah, and mention Moxie music. I just recently had Jordan Peak on. Actually, he's just signed to
Great
Moxie.
episode.
Yeah, oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, he's a great guy, real great guy. Yeah, Darius has done really, really well, actually. Really, really well.
Yeah.
And I'll go quickly brush up on this as well. Of all the events that you've played, which one has stood out to you the most, and why? I love this question.
It's a good question. It is a good question.
Because there's always that one that makes that imprint, right?
Yeah. So there's a club in Costa Rica in San Jose called Antik. And it was probably like one of my like first like headline shows, like soul headline shows. And so it's like in this historical mansion, like there. And so they run it. It's like a cafe during the day, but it's 3 floors. So they do like, you know, whatever kind of Spanish music on the top floor, kind of like open format in the middle. And then they have house music in the basement. So it's this like low ceilinged, grungy, hot. And like these people that just come there, like they're just there to have a good time. So like the energy in there is just unreal. Like the first time I played there, like I just had a disco ball in the middle with a light shining on it. Now they got like the grid lights and stuff, like, but they had a function one. Even the first time they had a function one, so that it's just like this perfect room, the energy, and like it's one of those rooms where like for me to like not even arms that like just past the gears, like the crowd. Like you're not separated by any means. Like
That's good.
who's handing me their phone over the booth with like messages, and I'm like typing back because like I can't hear them. And like the energy in that room, like I'll never forget it. Like I couldn't stop playing, like because they were like, "Oh, you could play a little longer if you want." Like I was like, "Yeah, cool." And then I started playing like back to back with the openers that came back on. And then my friend who's tour managing for me, like he's like, "Yo, we gotta go. Like we got a flight. Like whatever." I was like, "Yeah, one more track, one more track." Like play three more tracks. And he's like, "Yo, we really gotta go." I was like, "Yeah, one more track, like two more tracks." And like I just couldn't. Like I love that room. I love that party. And like I was like, all right. I was like, yeah, like that was like probably the gig that I was like, this is the energy that like I've been looking for. Like, you know, yeah, that was a special one. Then I played back there again last December, and it was equally as great. Like it's
That's
one of
cool.
those things like, and you've DJ'd where there's like certain rooms and certain crowds that like bring like a certain thing like out of you in a
Yeah,
way. And
yeah.
like so I had played there before my wife and I started dating. And so when I had the gig come up last December, I was like, "Yo, you gotta come with me." She's like, "I don't know," like whatever. I was like, "No, no, no, like you need to like come." So she comes, I play this set, and like I get off, and like I'll never forget it. She was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "What?" She's like, "I've never heard you play like that before. Like, and I've heard like tons of your sets." I was like, "Yo," I was like, it's the room. Like I can't. I don't know. It's the room, the energy. It's all of it. But yeah, I love playing there.
That's sick, man. I'm glad you said that because like it just reminded me of like when I like the smaller room vibe where you're really like 300 people max or something like that,
Yeah,
right? I love that,
yeah,
and it's just because the people are right there and you're all like in it, right? You're all, the
yeah,
vibe, everyone's just going together, and when you see like no disrespect to any of these, I think they're still good parties, but you see these big stadiums, I'm like, it's cool, but I think like in my local town, we had Carl Cox, Nick Fanciulli, because Nick Fanciulli used to run a festival called The Social.
yeah. I heard about this in
Yeah,
Maidstone. Yeah,
yeah,
is it Maidstone or
Maidstone.
Kent?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm from near there anyway. And yeah, we got Hector, Carl Cox, Digweed, Sasha, all in this club that could only hold probably around 300 to 400 people max. That's it. And they're
Yeah.
playing in this little place. And I've never felt like an experience like it, like you say, where you're just like so intimate with the music and the DJ's right there. And Carl Cox has got his towel and he's rubbing his head every 10 seconds, right? Because he's sweating so much. And it's like, yeah. And I'm glad you put that because I love relating to stories like that with that sort of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Source Bar. I haven't been to a party there, but when I was up, when I went over to play Ministry, I shot a video, like a documentary thing with Tool Room, like at like their headquarters and stuff. And so like we went in. Was it Source Bar? I think it was. Is that the one that's got the
It's down an alleyway.
Well, wait, hold on. So there was one spot. It was like it's like a pizza spot, and then there's a club in the downstairs.
Oh, fuck.
And they got like the red lasers that come up around the whole booth. I can't remember what it is. I thought that was Source Boy, but I don't think it was.
No, I know the one you're on about, but it's really going to annoy me now because I know
Yeah,
exactly what one that is, but I can't think. Yeah, I know exactly what that is.
yeah, that was a cool spot. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Green room? No, something
No,
with green. Maybe I don't know. We're gonna have to figure it out.
I know what I know exactly. It's going to piss me off, but I don't remember it. But yeah, the touring things is fantastic because I was playing Source Bar when I was 19, and
Okay,
that's where I met Pete Griffith for the first time, and he was playing the main room. I was playing
love
Courtyard,
Pete, bro.
and I was
Love
just
him.
like,
He's such a sweetheart. I
oh.
love him so much, man.
The,
Like,
the
love him
music
to
he was
death.
playing was fucking unreal back then, but it was a real deepy vibe, it
Yeah,
was really good, and it was just this little booth in the corner. I'm telling you, it was probably about 8 foot round, and they had the CDJ, they had two Technic 1210 Mark IIs, and they had the CDJ 1000 Mark IIs at the time.
hmm
And it was just a vibey cool thing, and they had like palm trees painted on the wall. It was like, yeah, it's all done up different now, but this was back when, and a lot of the people that are quite big now sort of started off
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
there, and it's a cool little vibe, man. Yeah, I'm glad you know that one actually. It's kind of better I put a
Yeah.
smile on my face actually about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man. That's
is there a what's the future plans for like yourself? I know we've obviously brushed on Elevated as well with like the podcast and the Academy and radio and everything like that. But what other things have you got coming up in the future that you'd like to share?
yeah, so launching the podcast hopefully in the next 2 months or so. So be on the lookout for that. But so I am gonna do so like the past year between growing the academy and like because I do everything for the academy from the sales, the marketing, you name it. So I haven't been in the studio for myself as much. You know, I've
Hmm.
done some client stuff, but so I'm actually going to do a vlog style series where I do 30 tracks in 30 days. So basically a track a day for 30
Fucking hell.
days. Um,
Fair play, mate. Yeah.
yeah, because like I was like, I need to do this. I was like, oh, what if I just did like this boot camp kind of thing for myself, and then like I have like my best friend, who like we're like the accountability for each other, So like when I was like making sure I was meditating every day, like I'd send him a screenshot that like I meditated every day. And so I was like, well, I'll probably just send him what I do every day anyway. So I was like, fuck it. Like, what if I just like do it on socials or like do it on YouTube or whatever and just do like a vlog style series, give like clips. And then what I'm going to do is have just one SoundCloud link. And
Yeah.
every 24 hours, I'm just going to like replace the file. And it's going to be like the next day's like track. So like the link will never change, but the track will change. This way it's not up there for forever and labels won't have a problem. But yeah, that's gonna happen. It's gonna be tough for sure, mentally, creatively. My wife is gonna have to carry a lot of the household duties for sure. but but yeah, no, she's on board. She's the best support I could probably have. So that's not a
That's good,
problem.
man. Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. I'm working on a summer Europe tour for a month. Looking at back to I can't really talk about that, but we'll be back in Ibiza for like a good couple of weeks during that tour, which will be really sick. So I'm excited for that.
When are you going back there quickly? Just so to cut you off there.
In the summer.
What's
So we're working on the exact date, but it'll be like a 4 week residency.
okay? Because I'm
Uh,
going back to the UK for 10 days in August. So if it's around that time, I'll fly
yeah,
out
and
to
I'm gonna
Ibiza.
definitely, and
Yeah.
then I'm also gonna try to do some stuff in the UK because I'm gonna set up a whole Europe tour around that. So
Yeah.
I'll be bouncing around, so that'll be fun. There's also this festival in Costa Rica, that I'm gonna be at called NT Festival. So I'm playing and I'm also doing a master class during the day. Like I'm gonna do
Oh,
like an
sick.
elevated master class as part of the festival. Like that's part of their thing. So I'm doing both, which I'm really excited about. It's kind of a cool story. So one of the guys that throws the festival, the first time I played that gig in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
2 weeks later, I got an Instagram DM, and this kind of comes full circle with us saying about you hitting up Hector and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This kid hits me up, and he's like, "Yo, like I caught your set like a couple of weeks ago." Basically saying that like it inspired him to start DJing, and so like I was just like, "Oh shit!" Like I was like, to me, I was like, "That's like the greatest compliment," because I just showed up to like do my thing. I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna like inspire people or do anything like that." So I kept in contact with him. I'd check in, like how it was like him learning how to DJ was going. I'd send him like my unreleased tracks, just check in and just be friendly with him. And so I actually, when I played last year, I tried to get him to open for me. Like it didn't work
Nice.
out, but like
Yeah.
I was like, this would like really be like a cool thing if like I could come back there and headline and get him to open. Um, so actually, he's one of the guys that throws the festival. So he's bringing me down to like play. He was like, "Yo, would you wanna?" Like, I was like, I was like, "I'll be there, not a problem."
Yeah. That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, that was cool. So I'll be doing that. Other than that, launching a bunch of tutorial stuff in the coming weeks and months, between Mindset Mondays and just actual like the usual tutorial series where it's like shorter, impactful stuff. But yeah, I was supposed to record a bunch of content 2 weeks ago, and then I had to go and get sick. So I've been waiting, so I'm not as nasally on all the recordings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of stuff like that coming out. I got a new cohort of my tech house program starting, so you can hit me up and we could chat about that. And another one of my masterclass, which is an 8-month program, super in depth. That's like my baby. So like that's like the program that'll take you from being like an intermediate producer to being top, like no crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, like by the time you finish it, which it goes really well. A lot of students I've had through there are doing really well right now. I had one he just hit number 10 on minimal and Beatport. Had another one who I played his demo at ADE, and it got signed on the spot. So yeah, like
Nice.
those guys are crushing it. So it's a good program. I really love that one.
I might have to do the intermediate to the top because I've been producing for about 4 years because obviously I've moved to Canada and
Yeah.
got a family now and stuff like that. And there's all these new plugins now that I'm way behind on. I mean, I use Reason, I use their stock in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stock stuff now is pretty good, I think. But obviously you got Fab Filter and always
Yeah.
Serum and all these other ones, which are fine. But I still got my hardware stuff like the keyboard and everything. I still do that shit. But yeah, I mean, it's good that you're doing these courses because you've got that musical theory of what you explained earlier in the podcast to implement that, right? And it's hard to find courses like that, even on YouTube, where they've got that background. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think the problem with YouTube, like it's a great source of information, but it's so all over the place. Like I feel like in something like that, like you need structure, like that's gonna like build on the stuff that you've already done and like has a direction to go in. Because otherwise, you're going down this rabbit hole of like tutorials and be like, yeah, I think I need this, or people get stuck in like information mode where they'll just watch like 20 tutorials and be like, yeah, I learned all this stuff. But like if you don't go and use it, like it's just gonna go right out.
Exactly.
So yeah, like I've basically taken all the schools that I've been to and taken the best parts and the stuff that I really use and constructed this program that was like the first one. I made the Tech House program second, but the master class is like that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my baby. That's
Sweet,
the one.
man.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad you do that, and I'm really interested in the meditation music stuff as well. That's
I'll fire it over to you.
Yeah, that's something because even my missus loves all that as well. She's into the whole meditating and the chakra thing and stuff like that. So she would definitely like that.
Yeah, I'll fire it over.
Yeah,
I got
man,
one for each chakra, so you just throw it on. It's like 10 minutes, and basically like the way the binaural stuff works, it's because I mean you make music, so you'll grasp the concept, but you have one frequency in the left ear and a different frequency in the right ear. So let's say it's like 7 and 4. Your brain perceives the difference, so it's 3, and that's how. So like you basically start people up here, and you can bring them down into this meditative like theta state, and then kind of like you're doing different things but it's like really that like droney sound that kind of keeps them in this deep state, and then near the end you kind of bring it back up and bring them out of it. But like, yeah, it's fun to make. It's a cool little side project for sure, but I love doing it. Like I'll like throw them on, I'll listen and be like, God, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I interviewed a lady actually called Cassia, and she does the bowls. She does them sort of classes. She does that in swimming as well. So she have them floating in the swimming pool.
Oh, that's cool.
She'll do it, and you can hear it under the water, like going through.
That's sick.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's fucking so cool. But she's into that as well, and I was intrigued by that. I mean, I've never been into that, but I've started to get into it, like different, like you say, with music, there's different avenues and everything, right? So I've started to show an interest in what kind of that is all about. But she does the whole bowls thing, and different bowls, different thickness, have different tones and frequencies. And I was like, all right. And she said these will hit different sort of, I don't know if it's, quote me if I'm wrong, but different like neurons in the brain and will trigger certain things. And yeah, quote me if I'm wrong. I could be totally wrong with it.
No, you're right. Yeah, it hits different, like the body in different frequencies. Like it'll go to different parts, different chakras, stuff like that. I actually 180E, they had this like world class person like with like the bowls in like this church, and like it was like a sound bath. Like it was sick. Like it was awesome. Every year I look to see if it's like gonna be there again, and it's not. I'm like, damn. I was like, I wish that comes back.
Well, because churches were acoustically built like that for the organs, right? It's for the best sounds, and that there. Oh man,
Oh, it was unreal.
That's sick. I've even been to a rave that's been in a church before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
Who's the DJ?
oh, it's just a bunch of guys that just threw a rave in there, right? They had their own rig set up. They used to do
Nice.
Battle of the Rigs like in Belgium. They all across Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Where they've literally built their own rigs themselves, and then they do like Battle of the Rigs with other people around Europe. Yeah. And but it was in this church, and they threw a rave in it. This old church. I don't know if it was a church at the time, but it was originally a church in like 1600s or whatever. And they placed it around in certain areas, and obviously the ceilings all like archways and stuff, and it sounded amazing with like the music. I was like, fucking hell, yeah.
It's so who did one in the church once? It might have been an ADE party or something. I didn't go that year, but I think it was Dixon. I think they put Dixon in the church.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like somewhere, like an old church. I was like, that had to probably be really like I love stuff like that. Like when you're in like exotic locations, like listening to like music like that, it's just like such a cool experience.
That's like there's a guy I watch on YouTube called Look Mum No Computer. Have you heard of him?
Okay. No, I haven't.
He's like this guy from Brighton in the UK. He's a complete music geek, but he makes everything from scratch hardware. He'll make music. He made a Furby organ, but he actually made a flamethrower organ in a church and started playing it. And he'll buy like old telecom switchboards and make tunes out of it. He made 1,000 oscillator machine. Yeah.
What do you even do with 1,000 oscillators?
Honestly,
but that's sick though.
Yeah, check it out. You might like it.
I'll check that out.
It might be 1,000 or a million. I can't remember, but he made it. It was so long, and he was like, "There's no point to this, but I'm just making it anyway." So yeah, that might be something you might be interested in. But
yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate your time on my podcast show, and I appreciate you giving me time for telling your story. I massively appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. I had a great time. Like I said, I love the show. I love what you're doing. So keep it up.
I appreciate it, mate. That's big. That's big for me because I throw, like you say, you throw so much hard work into this stuff, and it's just like, you know, you want it to sort of fruit it like you're doing with your elevator jam. You want to grow it into something really cool. So
yeah, of course, man. And like, you know, this is what I was saying too about just reaching out to people and saying whatever you feel like you need to say. Cause like sometimes you need that feedback. Cause like, you don't know, like you do all, like you said, you do all this work, you put out an episode. Like if people don't tell you it's good, then you're like, oh man, like, is it working? Is it not working? Is it like, you know, hitting right? Like I had somebody tell me how like they loved my Mindset Mondays. Meanwhile, like 2 days earlier, I was like, oh, I don't even know if anybody really watches these things. Like, you know, does it really, whatever. And like, oh, I love your mindset stuff. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Like, I'll definitely like keep doing it, you know? So, yeah, I love the show. Love what you do.
I appreciate
it. Great interviewer.
Appreciate it, mate. And I like, again, you know, I'm not kissing your toes, but I like what you're doing as well with your elevated brand, and what you've done so far is really good. So,
thank you, man. I appreciate it.